Hi everyone, hope you're keeping safe and sane in these crazy old times. I'm George, and today I'm going to be taking you through some beginner exercises to help you to start coming up with an idea for a play as well as to start writing it as well. So hopefully these exercises should just give you a bit of background and a bit of an easy way in to help you to start write your play. So the first exercise that I want to give you is it's called free writing. So effectively what you need to do is write down a list of both emotions and themes or ideas. And then what you want to do is create a little chart like this, if you can see that. So I've just got here frustration, joy and sadness. And then in my themes column, I've got the Queen, forgotten and cooking. And what you basically need to do is to then select one from each column, and the best thing to do is to probably choose the two that conflict the most, that are completely different. So for instance, I'll probably go for joy with forgotten, because they're two very contrasting things. And then what you want to do is set yourself a timer for 5 minutes and just write in any form you like. So it can be poetry, it can be a monologue, it could be dialogue if you like. And what you want to do is just write for 5 minutes without your pen leaving the paper or fingers leaving the keys. And basically what this is just going to do is it's just going to get you into the kind of swing of writing. It's going to help you to kind of set yourself up to get into like a kind of writing mode. And the best thing to do is to just not overthink it. So to not don't plan any ideas, just literally go in with whatever your brain first takes you over with. And once the 5 minutes is up, you can then just leave that to one side, and then you can either come back to it later and have a look at it again, or it's more than fine to just leave it where it is. I've got a folder on my computer where I've just got a folder titled Rubbish, which is just all my free writing from over the years, where nothing has really come of it. And that's just going to help you engage your brain a bit more. And it's a good exercise to do as well, because you can also adapt it later on when you're trying to get into like writing your play again, like across 2 days or whatever it is that you're writing. And you can then use that as a kind of free writing exercise around your characters or around situations or scenes. And it just helps you plant your brain into a more kind of engaged area where you can then kind of really develop your ideas further. Exercise number 2, which is forming and coming up with ideas for a play. So ideas are one of the most difficult things I find, because you've kind of got to come up with something new each time, which can be quite difficult because there is a danger that you do just write the same play over and over again. My biggest advice with ideas is to write something that you're really interested in, something that you're really passionate about. You don't want to be writing things that you think other people will be interested in. The chances are, if you're interested in it, someone else will be as well. So I've got 2 ideas of exercises that you can try to get some ideas flowing onto the page. And one of them is that inspiration can kind of come from anywhere, and that's a kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time. So one area that I like to look at when I'm looking for a new idea is to look at old newspapers and old magazines, and to effectively pick out headlines or little snippets of text that I really like and that I find have quite an interesting stance on something in particular, and then to take those different excerpts and different little extracts and then to kind of bundle them all together and then work out if there's anything here that can work together as one idea. Because it's often that one idea is 3 or 4 kind of smaller ideas kind of bundled together into one package to create this bigger thing. So that's what I think you could do as a first initial exercise, is to go through an old magazine or old newspaper. And I do stress old, because obviously if you pick up a newspaper from today, it's just going to be corona, corona, corona. So I reckon the best thing to do is to find an old newspaper article, an old magazine, and just to flick through and think about any images that really grab your attention, any particular headlines, any little bits of text within an interview, and to then collate them all together and think about what are the common things that are running through them, and to think about how that might translate into a kind of dramatic potentially dramatic kind of situation. The other concept that you could try with this exercise, or the other kind of side of the coin, is to think back over your life and to think about the life-changing moments, or what some might call the days you'll never forget, and to think about these unique experiences and situations that you found yourself in, because they can be kind of really rich areas to draw inspiration and ideas from. The other alternative is you can think about characters in your life, so people that you know, and to then base elements of plays off of those. So really good stories that you've heard from them, or situations you found yourself in with other characters. They can be really good areas to kind of think about plays from. Exercise number 3, which is talking about the things that you need for a play. To start out with, the things that you want to think about are the following. So you've got A, which is setting. And my advice would be to try and think of the least obvious place for your play to take place. There are a lot of plays set in kind of kitchens, set in living rooms, and it's quite interesting to think about a different location that hasn't necessarily been used, and what that's going to do to the dialogue and the characters. If they're in a place where they shouldn't be, that's going to create a much more of a stressful and jeopardized kind of a situation, which will affect the dialogue and how the action runs, which is really interesting. Some very good settings that I've seen in plays, caravans are really interesting. Gyms and gym locker rooms are really interesting, and just various other places like that. So even office workplaces can be can have a wealth of opportunity. And what's really interesting to look at with setting as well is what can happen in that space. So what is on offer? So if you set a play or a scene in a toilet, for instance, in a public bathroom, what have you got there to kind of utilize within the scene? You've got hand dryers, which can definitely drown out other people's talking. You've got the cubicles, so you might not know who's in another cubicle. You've then got the sinks as well. So there's all these different kind of environmental action-based things that you can have. Then you need a character. So that can be 1 character, 2 characters, 3 characters, however many characters you like, but you need a form of character. You then need a situation, or what is happening. So what's happening in that scene, for instance, or what's happening across the whole play. It's quite interesting to look at what's happening over the whole play to then look at what needs to happen in this one specific scene. Then you've got part D, which is the context and what has happened before this scene that you're writing, or before the play. What does the audience need to know going into this scene? Do they need to know anything? It might be more interesting just to drop them into the scene and let them figure things out themselves. And then the final thing that I think you need for a play is a time frame. How long does the play's action span? Does it last a day? Does it last 2 days? Does it last a week, a month? Does it span over years? You need to know what that is to then work out what you're trying to say and what the action of the play actually is in itself. So that's exercise number 3, which is a good thing to think about in terms of the planning stages. So you've got your idea, then you need to think about what do I want in this play? And that might change and adapt, but it's good to start thinking about early on. This idea of creating what is called an action line for your play. And this may change over the course of you writing and rewriting the play, but it's good to think about in the early stages so you know what you're kind of driving towards with the play. So this often takes the form of 2 different things, and this is a technique from playwright David Edgar, so it's quite big time. So basically the idea of the exercise is that you write down what is going to happen in your play just using 1 sentence to sum it up. And this will often be one of 2 things. So you've either got something that's called the project and the reversal, which is, for instance, a more of a kind of tragedy-based thing. So the protagonist, your main character, sets out to do something, but they're stopped by something else, leading to a different thing that they initially set out for. So for instance, an example of this would be Macbeth sets out to become king, but begins to be corrupted by his ambition and wife's wishes, leading to fatal consequences. So you'll often have the project they've set out to do, then you'll have a but, which is the contradiction, which means that there's something else that has stopped them from getting that initial project, and then you have the final consequences of that. And then the other side of that is a despite/nonetheless. So for instance, that's more of a comedy-based thing. So the protagonist has all of the odds against them, but nonetheless they succeed in their mission. And this is more of a comedic element that's kind of seen more in like kind of Midsummer Night's Dream. So it's often kind of this idea that the character has a really bad thing. So the first part of that sentence will be a negative thing, and then it's but nonetheless they achieved their objective effectively. So that's always quite a handy thing to do, to just keep a kind of in your head as you write, to kind of know what you're driving towards. So this is looking at character. So I believe that character is the most important thing in any story. If the characters are not well-rounded or feel realistic at all, an audience will not want to follow them for the duration of your play. So here are some exercises you can do in the early stages to flesh out your characters. You're aiming to know your characters as if they're your best friend. You want to be able to go down the pub and speak about them as if you know them in real life. So just a few exercises that you can try out to, and some of these might not work for you, but I'm going to give them to you just so that you can have a play around and see what fits and works for you. So the first one is writing biographies for your characters, so writing them a whole backstory. And this might take the form of a short story, this might take the form of a monologue, it might even just take the form of literally, they're from here, they're this age, this is what's happened to them leading up to this play, and this is what's going to happen to them after the play. Because that's really important, is that a play is just a chunk of someone's life. It's not the whole aspect of it. You could also try out monologues from characters, so putting them in different situations and having them speak just freely through their thoughts, so you can work out what they think about different scenarios and situations. Building off of that as well, you could also try putting your characters in unusual scenes and situations. So for instance, if you're writing a very political drama about, I don't know, a terrorist plot, you might be, it might be quite interesting to take those quite high stakes characters and put them in a fish and chip shop and see how they react to those more everyday kind of scenarios. Another one to do is writing down 51 things you know about that character. And you might be surprised what you come up with. Similarly to free writing towards the beginning that we looked at, you can set yourself a timer for 5 to 10 minutes and literally write your character's name at the top and then write down from 1 to 51 things that you know about that character. And they can be as basic or as deep as you like, but you'll surprise yourself by things that you write down. And there might be things that you disagree with that you've written down, but that's good because then it's kind of making that character more concrete in your head. Another good one to do is a letter exercise. So character A is writing a letter to character B, but character C has intercepted it. So you're looking at reactions and how people interact with things that they get given within a situation. And also another concept that I quite like is writing out the character's journey in the play as a short story. So it's quite nice to take one character out of the play and then write their whole story as a short story, because that will really kind of enrich the situations that they're putting themselves in and will really kind of mark out for you what their arc is over the whole play. So there's some character exercises that you can look at, and there's plenty more that I'd be happy to give you some more of if you know me and want to get in contact. And so actually a final one that I want to do is just plans for starting. And there's an idea that no two writers are the same in their approach to writing a play, and I think that is very true. So I'm going to give you a few different options of things that you can do if you've never touched a play before, if you've never even written one before. These are some ideas for things that have worked for people in the past. So the first idea is that you can structure your play. So you can write a scene-by-scene breakdown of what needs to happen in each scene to get you towards the ending point. You can also write the final scene of the play so that you know where you're headed, and that makes things a lot easier, because often it's said that if you've got an issue with any scenes in your play, it's often because you don't know where you're ending up. You can do extensive character work, so you can develop these exercises that I've given you previously and work out really who these characters are and what their rich worlds are. There's also the other two exercises that you can do are just jumping in and writing. So similarly to free writing, just letting your imagination take flow and to just let the characters kind of speak for themselves and work out what it is that they need to tell to get the story across. And then one that I like to do personally is to write initially the crucial scene, which may not even make it into the final play, but it's the scene where everything happens. So it could be the climax scene, it could be the ending scene, but it's a scene where potentially all the characters are involved and everything is kind of spilling out. And that is a really interesting exercise to do, because then it tells you what you need to kind of set up in the play and what you're kind of driving towards, similarly to writing the ending scene. So they're just some exercises to help you get started in writing your play, whether it's your first play, your 10th play, and it just kind of helps you to think about plays in a completely different way. I've also got some exercises on dialogue and subtext, but I don't want to take up too much of your time, so feel free to give me a shout if you need anything else. And yeah, best of luck and stay safe and healthy.